Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and in this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have lots of very interesting details and updates, so let's start. And the most important things are coming from, of course, Kharkiv direction. We got another video published by the Russian sources of another redeployment of significant number of forces with a special sign of group of forces north in direction of Belgorod. And we discussed this situation almost every single video. Another batch of armored vehicles were heading to the line of combat contact, but when talking about the situation, we still haven't seen even a single tank, even a single, let's say, armored attack by the Russian forces. Let's discuss these videos once again. For example, this video we received around on the 30th of May, another batch of tanks, and this is completely different batch of tank heading to the borderlands, to the Belgorod area. Significant number. Right? Another video we got, for example, a few days ago, and on this video, for example, we see on the of 17 tanks heading also somewhere in the line of or to the line of combat contact in Belgorod region. Also, another big armored fist, another big batch of tanks. This video, for example, this photo we received on the 28th of May, so a few days ago, almost a week ago. This video we got today, we discussed this a few minutes ago. So on this video we can see another batch of, let's say, armored vehicles heading to the line of combat contact. So the question is, where are all these tanks, where are all these armored vehicles, personnel carriers, artillery systems, and many other things? And the answer to this question we can find not on the line of combat contact, not somewhere in Liptsy or Vovchansk. The answer to this question we can find today in the official post of the group of forces north that is responsible for Kharkiv offensive operation. Today they published in their official Telegram channel a very interesting article. Not an article, it's like a statement, it's like a summary of things that they managed to achieve during the past 24 hours. And for example, according to them, the Russians managed to improve their position, to advance of the total advance of Russian troops in the Vovchansk direction was up to 500 meters. So they were talking most likely somewhere about the central part or maybe the eastern part. Also, according to them, they are saying that the Ukrainian losses during the previous 24 hours were amount to 300 and to 320 people, so soldiers. Furthermore, they provided a list of vehicles they destroyed, and after that, the final paragraph, the final, let's say, part of the article is the most important one. I would like to discuss this article together. So this July, NATO countries will gather in Washington to finally decide what to do with Ukraine. Until this time, the Kiev regime will try to carry out a major offensive operation in order to show Western supervisors the need to receive an invitation from Ukraine to the alliance. Also, they were probably talking about not just the invitation, but about the continuous supply and support of Zelensky and Ukraine as well. And with a high degree of probability, this operation will be carried out here in Kharkiv region. The armed force of Ukraine believes that it has taken into account all the mistakes of last year's failure, and hastily assembled brigades from mobilized people caught on the streets will bring success to the armed force of Ukraine. So all these armored vehicles we've seen during the previous videos we discussed, the Russians are planning to use not to offensive operation, not to attack the Ukrainians, but to slow down and to defeat the Ukrainians this time, probably the last time on this direction. And this is the main reason why the Russians are not showing any, let's say, progress in the line Глубокое, Liptsy, Lukyantsy, Lintsy. On the other hand, we continue receiving updates from pro-Ukrainian sources that the Ukrainians is the side who are counterattacking the Russians every single day. So this is very interesting. Also, the same story about Vovchansk. The Russians managed to answer the town. The Russians managed to establish significant control over around 30% or 40 or 50% of the northern Vovchansk, but the Russians stopped. They continue bombing and destroying the citadel, the industrial zone. Also, according to the previous report, the Russians currently are clashes are taking place for industrial zone. So of course, before Ukrainian greatest Kharkiv counter-offensive operation, the Russians, at least on this line of combat contact, tried to establish the, let's say, front line along Volcha River. Before beginning of Ukraine attempts to attack, they want to establish real, the front line along the river and to make additional barriers, water barriers for the Ukrainians. So that means, what does it mean? Once again, the meeting of NATO countries is going to take place in July. The Ukrainians don't have enough of time. They don't have a lot of time. So that's why, according to the statement, we should expect during the next 1 or 2 weeks the beginning of Ukrainian very short offensive operation. The Ukrainians are not going to move from Kharkiv to Moscow. Obviously, they can't do this. They are not going to do this. But according to that statement, according to the official statement of the Group of Forces North, we can make a conclusion that most likely the Ukrainians will try to establish control over these lines. So to establish control over the villages, settlements along the border, and the most important, to get as close as possible to the town by the name of Belgorod. And the main purpose of getting as close as possible to Belgorod is to start bombing and attacking this town, and to reduce this town to ruins, as let's say the towns like Bakhmut, Chasov Yar, Avdiivka, and many other towns of Ukraine suffered during the special military operation. So the Ukrainians are trying to mirroring the situation on the territory of Russia. Maybe they have some other purposes. Anyway, we're going to see this during the next few weeks. I'm not saying that Ukrainians are able to do this, but obviously the Ukrainians don't have any other chances. They need to show, let's say, the results to the Western countries, to the NATO, and to continue to save the support, to save the supply from the Western countries, and to move the, let's say, special operation from the territory of Ukraine on the territory of Russia. Zelensky needs this as a personal victory to show his soldiers, his army, that Ukraine army is also able to do something. So we'll see what is going to be next. Furthermore, let's move now to the line of combat contact. We have additional updates, additional reports. First, we're going to talk about north in Kupiansk direction. Today, according to some updates, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the village by the name of Avdiivka and to establish additional control over additional buildings. So, according to some for now unconfirmed resources, the Russians are about to finish the clearing of Avdiivka. This will secure and prepare the southern flank before the beginning of the Stelmakhovka offensive operation, which is also going to take place very soon. Now let's move to Stelmakhovka itself. During the previous night, we got few videos of how the Russians were bombing and attacking the village, the Ukrainian positions inside of the village, with the purpose to, let's say, reduce the Ukrainians' defense possibilities and to prepare the foothold before the further Russian attempt to assault the village. Now let's move further to the south in direction of Verkhnyakamyanska. During the previous night, the Ukrainian sources published another video of another Russian attack on the stronghold that located to the east of Verkhnyakamyanska. The Russian attack was repelled by the Ukrainian 118th Mechanized Brigade, who's responsible for defense in this area. And this is something new because it's not a mechanized but territory defense brigade. This is 118th Brigade. And let's say, one of the geolocations, one of the area we managed to geolocate the presence of Russian soldiers were inside of the trenches. So for now, we have adjusted the map and now we show the territory as a gray zone. We need more details, more evidence whether the Russians managed to establish complete control or the Russians were forced to fall back. Anyway, that attack was very interesting, and this is probably the second or third attack during the previous few months in this direction. And the main purpose is to get and to semi-encircle the main hill, White Belagora. Belagora is located here, the highest point on the direction. And if the Russians are able to do this, then we can start counting days before Siversk fall. We have some confirmation from different mappers about additional Russian progress. If you remember, yesterday we discussed that Russians improved their positions in direction of Razdolovka. Today this information was confirmed by different mappers. When talking about Chasov Yar, we stop receiving any updates. Most likely there are very heavy clashes. The Ukrainians are attacking the Russian forces in the base of, let's say, Kalinovka, in the, let's say, eastern outskirts, on the eastern part of the village, trying to suppress and to break the Russians' reinforcements and reserves. On the other hand, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the northern part of Kalinovka, trying to slow down and reduce the Ukrainian possibilities of their possible counterattacks from the northern part. So anyway, the situation for now is stable. Neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are able to improve their positions, but the Russians currently don't need this. They need to dig in deeper. Now let's move to Avdiivka direction. We have additional updates from this territory as well. The Russians continue offensive operation in the vicinity of Sokol, Novoalexandrovka. Today we got additional updates from different mappers, including pro-Ukrainian deep state. And according to them, as a result of clashes during the previous, let's say, days, the Russians managed to improve their positions along this tree line, and currently this entire territory is under complete Russian control. This is another tree line that was captured by the Russians during the previous week, and the Russians are getting closer and closer to the towns like Progress and to the towns of Luzovatske and Novoalexandrovka. And also we can make a conclusion that the town by the name of Sokol village is already encircled by the Russians from three sides. Today we got also the video from the Ukrainian sources of how they destroyed or repelled another attempt to attack from the Russian side in direction of Yasnobrodovka. On this video we can see the Russian tank that was destroyed by Ukrainian javelins. The tank was destroyed in this area. So the Russians were attacking something like this. Most likely that was reconnaissance and forcing in combat, but the tank was stopped by the Ukrainians, and after that the Russians started everything from the beginning. Now let's move further to the south. We have very interesting video from the Russian sources. They continue building and creation of new drones. We know that we saw in the previous phase of the special military operation, we continue watching the work of FPV drones, Baba Yaga drones, but now the Russians are, let's say, starting the production of ground drones, and the main, let's say, purpose of these ground drones is to bring as many as possible explosives to the line of combat contact, to Ukrainian trenches, let's say, because when talking about drones, there are limits in the use of different explosions because of weight of these explosions. But when talking about the ground, as you can see, they are not limited. They can use significant number of explosions and to bring them right to the line of combat contact, to machine gun position, to another trenches and the fortifications. For example, in this video we can see exactly this process. The Russians were moving their drone to machine gun position of armed force of Ukraine. Because of the drone was very small, the Ukrainians didn't saw, and then there was an explosion, and the Russians reported that they managed to destroy the machine gun position, which cleared the passage for further offensives. When talking about Novomikhailivka, Konstantinovka, during the previous night we have reports from different mappers, including pro-Ukrainian deep state. They confirm additional Russian progress, let's say, until this tree line, and also, because you can see, they have colored most of the territories to the south of the gray zone, which is also very significant progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation. Also, we have reports about progress of the Russians on the southeastern part of Konstantinovka. Most likely during the night and most likely during upcoming day, the Russians are going to improve their position further in direction of this village itself, and most likely today we're going to see the first clashes inside of the village. If we see these updates, if we see the clashes inside of the village, this is going to be a significant problem for the Ukrainians, and all this progress, all this attempt from the Russian side can ruin the Ukrainian plans to begin offensive in Kharkiv, because if they see complete collapse of defense belt somewhere, let's say in the South Donetsk direction or in the south, of course they will be forced to stop any offensive in Kharkiv, and they will be forced to start redeployment forces back to the south or something like this. So we'll see what is going to be next. Also, we have confirmations of Russian progress further to Vadiana. When talking about other front lines, we haven't received anything special, just regular updates. Now let's discuss some political and some global Ukrainian reports. The most terrible updates start coming from the borderlands between Romania, Hungary, Slovakia and Ukraine. Today we start receiving the first videos of how the Ukrainian border services start finding the people along the border, let's say, who lost their lives as a result of getting on the minefields. If you remember, a few days ago we were talking that Ukrainians start establishing the mines along the border with the purpose to reduce the level of migration, unofficial illegal migration, but that's led only to consequences and casualties among the Ukrainians, because they start blowing up on these minefields. It's a terrible picture, and of course nobody is going to suffer any problems, any, let's say, penalties from anybody in the country due to these real, let's say, terrible things and so on. Now let's move to Kiev. We have very interesting details as well. Zelensky, according to information we have, Zelensky is planning to reduce the requirements and demands to Russia to begin the negotiation process. According to information we have, according to Bloomberg, there used to be 10, let's say, paragraph 10 things that Russia should complete to start, not Russia, but the entire situation should be, let's say, fit to these 10 paragraphs, and then Zelensky can start negotiation with Russia. We remember the compensation, money compensation, the borders of 1991, and many other different things. But now Zelensky reduced all the requirements to 3 paragraphs, and according to him, Russia should return control over the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant to Ukraine. Then Ukraine should have access to the Black Sea and Azov Sea without any problems, and returning all prisoners of war. So this just 3 paragraphs, and Ukraine can start negotiation process. This information we received from Bloomberg. On the other hand, other sources reported that Zelensky doesn't have any possibilities to start negotiation process with Russia, even if Russia will, let's say, allow the Ukrainians all to complete all these 3 paragraphs, because there are still lots of neo-Nazis in Ukraine who will basically broke any agreements, any negotiation process with Russia. Furthermore, we have additional report that Ukrainians with dual citizenship will not be released from the country and may be mobilized. This also information includes, this new thing also includes the citizens of the United States of America who also have double citizenships. Furthermore, we got very interesting reports from Europe. Today we got reports that NATO develops plan to move US troops to Europe in case of Russia aggression against the alliance. The Telegraph 5 main corridors are being planned from the Netherlands, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and Norway. On the other hand, we can receive reports that 5 kilometers from the border of the Kaliningrad region, 30 NATO warships embarked on a raid. The largest alliance exercise in the Baltic begins on June 7. Furthermore, we got report from Ukraine itself that from June 5 to June 13, Ukraine armed forces exercise using armored vehicles will be held in Kiev and the region. So as you can see, two exercises are going to start almost at the same date. Let's say on the northwestern part of Belarus and on the southern part of Belarus. These exercises are going to be held due to probably the period when the Ukrainians are going to start offensive in direction of Belgorod. So just to collect as many as possible forces around Kaliningrad, Belarus, and Russia, trying to force them not to make any actions against Ukraine from any other direction, using missiles, probably any, let's say, I know, Kinzhals, hypersonic missiles, and so on. Furthermore, we got continue receiving reports that Ukrainian drones, that NATO drones, Global Hawk, are flying very close to Sochi. Today we expect few more updates, few more reports that the Russians managed to bring another Global Hawk down. So we'll follow the Black Sea situation as well, because something interesting obviously is going to take place there. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.